Welcome, everyone, to our channel. Today, we bring you a thrilling science fiction journey full of secrets, chases, and an unbreakable bond between a human engineer and a mysterious alien sentinel. By the end of this epic tale, you'll witness the most astonishing action yet, when our heroes risk everything to unleash cosmic knowledge upon the entire world, forever changing humanity's future. Intrigued? You won't want to miss the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph in the final pages. To discover exactly how Harold and Zalara make their daring stand and what fate befalls those who chase them, be sure to listen to or read the whole story right to its conclusion. And if you enjoy these kinds of narratives, remember to subscribe to our channel. Your support fuels our passion for sharing more exciting adventures. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below on your favorite moment and where you tuned in. Harold Diamond rubbed his tired eyes as the overhead lights in the Cyberholonics research lab automatically dimmed to signal the end of the official workday, though he was nowhere near finishing. Every evening it seemed the same. The facility's automated voice assistant would chime in with a polite reminder that he'd exceeded his allotted hours, and every evening Harold would shrug it off as he continued debugging the neural pathways of the new Axie-7 android prototype. The code flowing across his holographic display was mesmerizing, each line representing a step closer to achieving the perfect personal assistant, a device that not only performed tasks but understood them in a way that rivaled human intuition. Other engineers had families and social lives to return to, but Harold's existence outside these walls involved little more than reading theoretical papers and heating up prepackaged dinners. At the far end of the lab, the Axie-7 unit stood upright in a sleek black diagnostic cradle that hummed almost imperceptibly. The design was modern and streamlined, a shell engineered for minimal noise and maximum utility. Even though many in the company saw him as an eccentric introvert, Harold was far from uninterested in people. He simply preferred the orderly reliability of technology to the unpredictable chaos of human interaction. As a lead integration engineer at Cyberholonics, he found a certain solace in finessing the empathic response modules and privacy protocols because they obeyed logic, even if that logic was often complex. "Are you still refining the subroutines?" came a firm yet calm voice from behind him. Harold spun around in his swivel chair to face Dr. Rosalind Odell, the project director. She wore her lab coat with a sort of regal authority, and her posture never slackened, even after hours on her feet. "I'm stuck with a loop in the empathic boundaries," Harold explained, eyes drifting back to his holographic interface. "Customers want an assistant that feels almost sentient, but they also need absolute discretion. The code that processes emotional cues is conflicting with the privacy locks." "Perhaps it's not a bug," Rosalind said, stepping closer to examine the lines of code. "Adaptive learning means the Axie-7 might require actual negotiation of boundaries, like two people do, rather than a set of unbreakable guardrails." Harold shook his head, stifling a slight laugh. "But that defeats the purpose of a flawless personal assistant. Clients pay for consistency and security. They don't want to debate with a household robot about what it can or can't share." Rosalind gave a slight shrug, letting a small smile crease her face. "Maybe you should see how it behaves in a domestic setting. Field tests often reveal nuances the lab never can." "Right," Harold muttered, busy saving his progress. He sensed that Rosalind wasn't simply talking about the product. Something in her tone suggested she believed Harold himself might benefit from having a companion, even a synthetic one. Not long after she left, Harold realized he was alone in the lab, long past the time he should have gone home. The overhead lights had flicked to night mode, casting elongated shadows against the polished floors. Resigned, he closed his console and, with a final half-hearted salute to the Axie-7 prototype, headed out of the building. His tiny apartment near downtown Celeron City was as he'd left it that morning, meticulously neat, with almost nothing out of place. Yet the silence pressed on him heavier tonight. Was it Rosalind's suggestion lingering in his mind? He dropped onto his sofa, opened the employee portal on his tablet, and checked the new Axie-7 marketing page. Bold bullet points boasted about the unit's adaptive capacity, discrete profile, and reliable nature. Everything that might streamline his life. Harold hesitated for a long moment, wondering if he really needed such a device. Then a ping alerted him to yet another system fault at the lab that needed addressing by morning. Weary from overwork, he decided on the spot. He selected the next-day priority delivery option, activated the employee discount, and pressed confirm. Harold woke to the chime of his door scanner earlier than usual the next day, half disoriented because he'd actually slept through the night for once. The floor felt cold under his feet as he staggered to his front door, pulling on a random t-shirt in the process. A courier wearing a crisp company uniform hovered beside a sleek, jet-black container, roughly the size and shape of a narrow coffin. "Delivery for Harold Damon," the courier said in a monotone, extending a tablet for Harold's biometric signature. Harold obediently pressed his thumb, hearing the muted beep as it confirmed his identity. The courier nodded and tapped a few more commands before stepping back. As soon as the door shut, the container gently drifted through the living room, guided by inbuilt micro-thrusters, and came to rest in the center of the space. Harold stared at it, feeling like an intruder in his own home. The container's edges pulsed with a soft blue luminescence, the cyberhalonics emblem etched subtly into one corner. He took a few cautious steps around the container. "Axis 7, huh?" he murmured, imagining an android sealed within. He expected it to have a metallic sheen, elongated limbs, perhaps a single ocular sensor, a perfect testament to advanced robotics. Instead, the container suddenly emitted a mechanical hiss, and the top slid aside. A misty vapor escaped, giving the entire scene a dramatic flourish. Harold leaned in, peering through the dissipating haze. His heart froze for a beat. What lay there was no android in the typical sense. Instead of carbon alloys and sin-skin plating, he saw what appeared to be a living being, a pale lilac-skinned woman with silver-white hair that seemed to shimmer under his apartment lights. She looked far too organic to be a standard cyberhalonics creation. He stumbled backward, mouth dry. Was this some covert experiment that had been shipped to him by mistake? She was motionless, except for the gentle rise and fall of her chest, as though she were breathing. Then, shockingly, her eyes fluttered open. Harold nearly dropped his data pad as those eyes, large golden irises with slit pupils, focused on him with uncanny precision. "Calibrations complete," she said in a voice light as chimes. "Genetic signature verified. Neural integration at baseline." Harold almost yelped, heart slamming against his ribcage. She moved with a grace no standard android possessed, pivoting out of the container until she stood at full height, nearly eye to eye with him. Her figure was lithe, limbs slightly elongated. Her posture oddly regal. You're not an Axis 7, Harold stammered. The alien woman tilted her head as if trying to understand his confusion. "I'm Zalara," she replied gently. "You are Harold Damon, correct? By your genetic code, you've awakened me from stasis." She looked around the room with mild curiosity, examining objects with a deliberate curiosity, as though encountering everyday human items for the first time. Harold's voice quivered. "This has to be an error. I just ordered a robotic assistant for cleaning and basic errands, not whatever you are." Zalara stepped closer. He felt an immediate tingling sensation as she neared, like static electricity dancing over his skin. "I am far more advanced than a mundane household android," she answered with quiet confidence. "My design is biological and engineered, not mechanical. Your heart rate is elevated by 30%. You appear unsettled." Unsettled didn't begin to cover it. Gathering his courage, Harold tried to reclaim some control of the situation. Could you just put something on, please?" he managed, noticing her near nudity. She followed his gaze and realized the lack of apparel. Her lips curved in a sort of amused smile. She returned to the container and retrieved a form-fitting metallic bodysuit that seemed to pour across her skin as she slipped into it. "Is this attire acceptable?" she asked, giving a slow rotation. He nodded, swallowing hard. "I really need to contact—" Before he could say more, Zalara's head snapped toward his kitchen. She walked to the door of his fridge, placed a hand on it, and it sprang to life without him touching a single button. "Curious, electrical signals here are easily influenced," she murmured, scanning his meager groceries. "Your vitamin levels are probably inadequate. I should make you something nutritious." Harold felt a surge of panic. This was so far beyond the realm of any standard AI or android. She acted like a caretaker, yet she was undeniably sentient, maybe even more so than standard humans. Stop, please, he insisted, rushing to close the fridge door before she short-circuited all his kitchenware. This is definitely some monumental mix-up. Let me call the company. There's an emergency customer support line. Zalara regarded him with an enigmatic expression. I am not a shipment error, Harold Damon. I was placed in stasis over 3,000 years ago, waiting for a match with the proper genetic signature. You are that match. Harold scrambled for his data pad, determined to send an urgent message to Cyberholonics about receiving the wrong item. But an alert notification flashed on his screen, labeled High Priority Security Breach. All personnel must report remotely. The system logs indicated some sort of infiltration on the corporate network, though details were scarce. He frowned. Cyberholonics kept strict data compartmentalization. It was practically impossible for outsiders to breach it. Meanwhile, Zalara wandered the small living area, her luminous eyes scanning each piece of furniture and decor. She paused at a bookshelf holding Harold's prized, albeit modest, collection of rare astronomy texts. Your planet's knowledge has advanced in intriguing ways, she said, but you lack certain fundamental technologies to exploit your resource potential. What are you talking about? Harold asked, half distracted as he tried to read the security alert. She turned back to him, her expression calm but unwavering. Your civilization is at a key threshold. The simple explanation is that I'm here to ensure your continued progression. Let's just say your scientific leaps have attracted certain watchers. Harold set his datapad aside, confusion thick in his voice. You're telling me you're some kind of caretaker from beyond Earth? That you arrived at my apartment because I triggered your wake-up call with my DNA? Her stance became more formal. I'm what my creators once called a Sentinel, though the word might not capture all that I am. I'm engineered to protect and guide, but my interface is keyed to a specific genetic marker. Your genes match the coding seeded here millennia ago, so you awakened me. The idea that his entire career might be part of some cosmic plan was too enormous to process. He tried to keep rational. But that doesn't explain how you ended up in Cyberholonics' shipping pipeline. I ordered an Axie 7 unit, not a biological alien. Could someone have hidden you in the distribution channels? That much is certain, Zalara admitted. You might find a partial explanation if you check your corporate resources. But the reason I'm with you is not accidental. Your pulse is spiking again. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Harold's apartment lights flickered ominously. Then came another beep from his datapad. A pop-up indicated a presence scanning his building's security system. This is not normal, he muttered, flipping to his security feed. The building's elevator was forcibly overridden on its way up to his floor. Who the hell is messing with the building's protocols? Zalara leaned in, eyes narrowing. She placed a hand on Harold's chest, and a warmth spread outward from her touch, almost calming. I sense a new threat. Individuals with high-tech scanning devices, likely here for me. We have about 15 minutes before they bypass the final locks. The reality of this situation hit him like a blow to the stomach. They found us, this quickly? Her gaze held steadfast. They've been watching for any sign of my activation. Hunters, we might call them, though they're truly opportunists. They want to claim me, but in truth, they want to claim you too. Harold steadied himself against the wall. This is insane. Shouldn't we call the police or something? Zalara shook her head. They're well beyond local law enforcement. This group is affiliated with Eclipse Corps, a clandestine organization that seeks advanced technology to weaponize. Your local authorities are no match for them. You awakened me, Harold. We are now bonded by design. Neither of us can do this alone. Bonded? I never agreed to anything like that, he objected, though a part of him knew he was in far too deep for disclaimers or second thoughts. We have no time to debate, Zalara said. Gather essentials. She gestured toward the battered duffel bag near his closet. Money, identification, anything that will help us stay mobile. I estimate that we have less than 10 minutes now. A surge of urgent adrenaline overtook Harold, clearing his earlier confusion. If these so-called hunters were truly about to bust down his door, he needed a plan, and fast. He scrambled through his apartment, scooping up a spare ID, some emergency cash, a portable toolkit, and his datapad. Zalara retrieved the metallic stasis container's internal component, only to realize it wasn't vital. It held no special defenses to help them. I'm leaving the container itself behind, she said, glancing at Harold as he wrestled on a light jacket. It was only meant for transportation. Let's go. They hurried toward the apartment door. Zalara pressed a palm against it, tilting her head as if listening. They're on the 11th floor, 3 floors away. Harold exhaled sharply. That gives us a small window, maybe a minute or two. Without warning, Zalara struck the door with a powerful kick. The entire thing burst off its hinges and into the hallway, startling 2 men in dark suits with high-tech scanning devices. They barely had time to react before Zalara slammed into them with uncanny speed. One moment she was at Harold's side, the next she was taking out both men with precise, fluid motions, as if she'd done it 1,000 times. Harold watched, mouth agape, as the men crumpled to the floor unconscious. That was unbelievably fast. They'll recover, Zalara said simply, stepping over them. The stairwell, now. He followed her quick steps, mind buzzing with disbelief and adrenaline. The emergency exit door led to a concrete stairwell with flickering lights. They descended a few flights before Zalara halted, lifting a finger for silence. Harold strained to hear and noticed distant voices echoing upward. More of them, Zalara whispered, leaning her head slightly over the railing. 4, maybe 5, covering the lower levels. Harold glanced back up, seeing no retreat that made sense. We can't go back to my apartment. Is there another route? He scanned the area, recalling the building's maintenance architecture. Spotting a door labeled Utility Access, he motioned for Zalara to follow. He produced a multi-tool from his pocket, prying the lock. Inside was a dark corridor of pipes and cables that snaked horizontally through the building. It should connect to the parking garage, he whispered, leading the way. Watch your step. There's metal grating on the floor. Zalara nodded, her luminous eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights. Your resourcefulness is impressive. Your fear is present, but you channel it well. Her compliment almost made him laugh under the circumstances. Thanks, I guess. Engineering isn't just about designing fancy gadgets. It's also about problem-solving under pressure. As they navigated deeper, Harold tried to distract himself from the pounding in his chest by focusing on the 4 strong points that anchored him. First, he was not alone. Zalara's presence, however bizarre, gave him a sense of precarious safety. Second, he had knowledge of the building's infrastructure. Third, he had an emergency stash of resources in his bag. Fourth, no matter how dire things looked, he had a new surge of courage he'd never experienced before. He wanted to protect Zalara as much as she was protecting him, even if that meant racing through pitch-black tunnels. They emerged into the parking garage, the cool air a relief from the stifling corridor. Below the fluorescent lights, he spotted his personal transport, a sleek, electric motorcycle. Adrenaline still coursing through his veins, he gestured toward it. We'll have to chance it, he said. It's the fastest option I have. Zalara studied the vehicle, apparently absorbing its operation. I can sense the design is straightforward enough, and she said, your memories provide me with context. Let's go before more of them arrive. They hopped on, Harold gripping the handlebars while Zalara settled behind him, her arms wrapping securely around his waist. He powered up the engine, relishing the silent hum of electric power. In the distance, screeching tires and shouted orders hinted at reinforcements. Hold tight, he warned, twisting the throttle. The motorcycle shot forward, weaving between concrete pillars and navigating tight corners with hair-raising speed. If the men in suits were here, they wouldn't be far behind. The garage exit ramp spiraled upward, and at the top of it, a broad security gate stood half-lowered. Harold grit his teeth and accelerated, ducking under at the last moment. Zalara clung to him, seemingly unfazed. They burst out onto the city street under harsh neon advertisements. Before they could catch their breath, 2 black SUVs glided into view from an adjacent lane, flanking the motorcycle's path. The tinted windows and absence of plates screamed clandestine. Harold forced himself to stay calm, zigzagging through early morning traffic while the SUVs attempted to box them in. Any suggestions? He shouted over the wind. West, Zalara answered, her voice near his ear. We need open terrain. I must show you something there. Somewhere to regroup. Though it sounded mad, Harold had no better plan. He veered onto a highway that cut through the outskirts of Celeron City, the traffic thinning as they left the neon skyline behind. The SUVs gave chase, headlights occasionally flashing across them in the pre-dawn gloom. After hours of evading, hiding, and switching highways to shake their pursuers, Harold and Zalara found refuge in a low-profile motel perched at the edge of an endless desert. Tumbleweeds and dust storms swirled across the cracked parking lot. The motel itself looked battered by sun and time, but it had what they needed: vacancy, anonymity, and walls thick enough to block a casual scanning. They took a room on the second floor, paying in cash to avoid any digital trace. Once inside, Harold wasted no time setting up a makeshift security system using his datapad and portable sensors, calibrated to pick up unusual energy signatures. Zalara, for her part, disappeared into the bathroom, emerging after a few minutes with her silver hair slightly damp, wearing the same form-fitting bodysuit. "Are you sure they can't track us here?" Harold asked as he arranged a scattering of printed photos and notes from his bag around him on the bed. He'd kept a personal trove of unusual artifacts, scientific rumors, and coded memos from his years at Cyberhalonics, things that never quite added up. "I'm not sure of anything," Zalara replied, eyes scanning the dim corners of the room. "But the signals we emit, especially mine, should be minimized by the structural design. I can cloak some of it, but not indefinitely. Eclipse Core is relentless. They'll use whatever means necessary to capture me." Harold paused, flipping through a set of images he'd printed months ago. Some depicted unusual glyphs found at dig sites on Mars. Others were rumored preludes to advanced biotech. Zalara joined him, noticing how meticulously he'd annotated each page with dates, references, and crosslinks. "These shapes," Harold said, pointing to a swirling pattern, repeated in multiple artifacts. "I always suspected they represented some unknown technology." But now he turned to a photo of a metallic stasis pod suspiciously similar to the one Zalara arrived in. "This is the only other reference I've ever seen that matches." Zalara's expression softened with recognition. "That symbol references a keyholder catalyst, the civilization that made me. I call them the ancients, though your science might label them precursors, occasionally left behind stasis pods to protect certain life forms they deemed critical to evolving species." Harold swallowed hard. "And apparently you're critical for us humans to, what, advance to the next stage? Are you saying we're in the midst of an evolutionary jump?" She nodded slowly, her golden eyes reflecting sincerity. "My presence is meant to guide, not dominate. But certain groups, like Eclipse Core, believe they can exploit my biology for warfare or profit. They see me as advanced biotech, an asset." The conversation sent chills through Harold. He reached for a battered notebook, flipping to sketches of potential infiltration routes, old rumors about black ops groups, even tangential connections to high-level employees at Cyberhalonics. "I never put two and two together," he muttered. "Cyberhalonics always seemed legitimate. Sure, it had big investors, but I never guessed it was linked to anything sinister. Yet if someone tampered with my Axie 7 order, they must have known the moment I took the ground that I had the genetic marker to activate you." "It's highly probable," Zalara replied, glancing at the printed emails Harold had flagged. "They must have manipulated your career path, ensuring you ended up in exactly the right position to order an assistant at the right time. You performed the final puzzle piece, initiating the stasis pod's shipping protocol." Harold's brows knit. "So for 5 years, everything I did was orchestrated to lead up to you?" Zalara placed a hand softly on his. "Manipulated or not, your work matters. You have real talent. It isn't your fault they used you. I know how you feel, Harold Diamond. My entire existence was predetermined. My purpose sealed before I ever drew breath." Harold exhaled, leaning back on the motel bed as the setting sun cast long orange rays through the dusty window. For a few moments, he felt a surge of anger at the realization that years of his life might have been a grand setup. But he also recognized a flicker of pride in how far he'd come, even if the impetus behind it was nefarious. Zalara seemed to sense his emotional flux. "Your heart rate escalated," she observed. "Are you in distress?" He shook his head, half smiling. "Just reorienting. This is the strangest day of my life, and it only started this morning. But I can't just keep running forever. If Eclipse Core wants you, they'll keep chasing us." Zalara gazed at him intently, her golden eyes catching the motel's flickering lamplight. "Your instincts are correct. We need more than just evasion. We need understanding." The beep of an alarm on his datapad made them both tense. Harold checked the readout, a spike in electromagnetic frequency not far from the motel. Oh, Mambo, likely scanning tech. They've caught a whiff of us already, he muttered, annoyance leaking into his voice. Zalara stood, her posture alert. Then we should leave before dawn. Gather any intelligence you can. We'll keep moving. All right, but let me try to find out why you're so important to them. And to us, he added, hooking the datapad to a portable hollow projector. In seconds, the motel table was illuminated with floating displays, partial files he'd hacked from cyberholonics, references to rumored ancients, contradictory official statements from agencies that studied off-world artifacts. He stared at a photograph of the stasis pod's external markings. These same runes match artifacts found in lava tubes on Mars, over 30,000 years old, he mused, cross-checking with a file on one Dr. Tour. Helena Morton, an archaeologist who specialized in alien relics. She spent years trying to prove that an advanced species had direct contact with early humans. The mainstream academic world dismissed her as a crackpot. Zalara, toweling off her still damp hair, peered over. Dr. Morton's name seems to appear often in your notes, she said. Perhaps she is the human best equipped to recognize a Sentinel. Harold nodded, eyes flicking to an older article titled Precursors Among Us. She runs a modest lab at the Southwest Astrobiology Institute. If anyone can identify what you truly are and how to protect you, it might be her. Actually, he paused, a new thought forming. She might also confirm how groups like Eclipse Core could profit from capturing you. Zalara settled next to him on the edge of the bed. Then we should seek her out. I trust your judgment. Harold ran a hand through his hair, torn between gratitude and worry. The bizarre bond he felt with Zalara kept intensifying. Sometimes he sensed fleeting impressions, like a faint echo of her mood in his own mind. He attributed it to adrenaline or stress, but something deeper suggested their fates were entwined in ways he could barely comprehend. Let's do it, he said, shutting down the holo display. But first, we need a solid plan to slip past Eclipse Core. My bike is probably compromised if they tracked it here. We might need an untraceable vehicle. Zalara gave a small, private smile, as though relishing the challenge. I'm learning so much about your planet's resourcefulness. Show me, Harold Damon, how a brilliant human engineer solves a problem when everything is on the line. They managed a bit of uneasy rest, though Harold's nerves kept him half awake, listening for every creak or shift in the motel's thin walls. By 3 a.m., he was on his feet again, scanning local sources on his datapad for vehicles that wouldn't ping any corporate or government trackers. He found a classified ad for an older model cargo van at a dusty lot on the outskirts of a nearby town. Its archaic engine systems were wholly mechanical, meaning no embedded chips to betray them. Using the last of their cash, they made the purchase soon after dawn, the lot's skeptical attendant likely not caring who they were as long as the bills were real. With the van legally in an assumed name, a leftover identity Harold had once used for test accounts, they set off, forging a zigzagging route through back roads. Zalara sat in the passenger seat, methodically studying the planet's geography on a battered old map. I'm cross-referencing the region with your memory. Dr. Helena Morton's facility is about 300 miles west, near the desert basin. So many remote roads here. It's both a blessing and a curse. Harold could only nod, focusing on the cracked asphalt. The midday sun beat down mercilessly, so he kept the windows down, letting warm desert winds sweep through the cabin. The tension between them was palpable, though not hostile, more a shared readiness, a sense that any lull in their vigilance could be fatal. Eventually, they pulled into a derelict gas station, hoping to refuel both the van's tank and their exhausted bodies. Zalara, for her part, seemed physically unaffected by thirst or hunger, but she mimicked human behaviors well enough not to rouse suspicion. Harold took the opportunity to buy water, pre-packaged sandwiches, and some basic first aid supplies. After returning to the van, he slumped into the driver's seat. We might need a better plan than just show up and knock on Dr. Morton's door. If Eclipse Core is on the prowl, they might anticipate our moves. Zalara was busy rummaging through the cargo area. She found a worn tarp, rummaging carefully, then discovered a small metal box containing old tools. We must move discreetly, but also quickly. Given the secrecy of Dr. Morton's research, I suspect her facility has minimal public signage. Harold forced a laugh. You do pick up on details. Yes, she's basically working off the grid. I found references to her being shut out of mainstream academic circles for her radical theories about alien genealogical seeding. Then she might embrace the opportunity to validate her claims, Zalera pointed out. At the very least, she won't dismiss me as some lab-grown novelty. They drove another few hours in silence, occasionally scanning police bulletins or independent news feeds for any mention of unusual pursuits. Even though the media had not identified them directly, Harold spotted a faint clue. A coded message from a Rosalind Odell, Balco at Cyberholonics, stating an irreplaceable asset had been compromised. The wording was so carefully generic that he read it as a confirmation. They had realized Zalara was gone, and they were not cooperating solely with law enforcement. A wave of betrayal slammed him. Had Dr. Odell orchestrated more than he ever suspected? Zalara touched his arm gently. We can investigate this once you're safe. He shot her a grateful glance. I guess I'm more worried about whether we'll be safe. We only partially know who's behind this. Cyberholonics might be working with Eclipse Corps or merely using them as hired guns. As they neared the general area indicated on his map, the roads turned from paved to gravel, and the sky shifted to a sweltering haze. It was late afternoon by the time they pulled up to a single-story building ringed by solar panels. A small sign read, Southwest Astrobiology Institute, with no mention of Dr. Morton. The place seemed deserted, but Harold spotted security cameras mounted at strategic angles. Zalara nodded toward the entrance. The building is not as empty as it appears. I sense advanced scanners inside, possibly a method to keep out intruders. Harold parked behind a crumbling stone wall, carefully out of camera range. Let's see if the good doctor is in and if she's friend or foe. They made their approach on foot at twilight, taking advantage of the long shadows. Zalara demonstrated a methodical stealth that bordered on supernatural. Every step silent, every motion fluid, as though her body processed real-time data about terrain and potential threats. Harold did his best to keep up without stumbling on loose gravel or cacti. Upon reaching a side entrance, they discovered a keypad and biometric scanner. Harold frowned, rummaging in his pockets for a device he'd tinkered with, an access override that sometimes worked on outdated systems. Zalara, however, placed her palm lightly on the panel. Within seconds, the lock clicked. How? Harold began. My physiology allows me to interface with simpler electronics. This one was particularly archaic. She offered a small shrug, as if it were the easiest thing in the world. They slipped inside a corridor lit only by emergency bulbs. Harold half expected an alarm, but it remained eerily quiet. Doors bearing academic labels lined the hall. Geobiology lab, exoplanet soil samples, seismic analysis room. Finally, they came across a large, glass-paneled lab marked Xenobiology Department. Zalara raised a hand, motioning for Harold to wait. From within, they heard a voice. This is incredible. If only I had funding for a deeper analysis. The morphological patterns alone suggest a cross-pollination of alien genetics in early Homo sapiens. Harold chanced a small knock on the glass, peering in. An older woman with a short bob of graying hair stood among suspended holographic diagrams that showcased various alien artifacts. She turned abruptly, scattering a cluster of floating text. Who are you? She demanded, alarm and curiosity warring in her features. Siddhartha Helena Morton, Harold asked softly. We're not here to harm you. My name is Harold Diamond. I'm an engineer at Cyberholonics, or I was until very recently. We need your help identifying something. Her eyes darted over them, lingering on Zalara's lilac complexion and luminous eyes. Her jaw dropped. My God, is that... No, it can't be. A live specimen from the same lineage as these ancient stasis pods? Zalara stepped forward, offering a nod. I am Zalara. In your terms, yes, I come from a line of biologically engineered sentinels placed here long ago by an advanced civilization. My purpose is to guide your species, but I'm afraid we have immediate concerns. Dr. Morton's trembling hand went to her chest, eyes wide. This is beyond what I ever dreamed. You need help? She glanced at a hidden camera above the lab door. We should talk quickly. This facility's higher-ups have ties to government agencies that keep tabs on anything related to alien artifacts. Harold pressed his palm against the glass to emphasize the urgency. Eclipse Corps is on our trail. They're trying to capture Zalara. We need to know why she's so valuable and how to stop them. Morton exhaled, eyes flickering over her floating diagrams. She waved a hand, and the door unlocked with a soft click. Come in. And please don't step on the sensors in the front portion of the room. Once inside, they exchanged a flurry of information. Harold outlined how he came to receive Zalara, the chase, and the suspicious infiltration at Cyberhalonics. Zalara added details about her role as a sentinel, referencing the species that seeded her genetic instructions millennia ago. Morton listened with rapt attention, occasionally darting to her console to bring up historical records. You see, Morton explained, swiping through a floating timeline, there are repeated clues in ancient Earth sites, portals, stasis pods, hints that humankind was monitored or even nurtured by advanced visitors. Most mainstream scientists dismiss these as myths, but I found enough correlations to suspect otherwise. And now, here you are, living proof. She fixated on Zalara with scholarly awe, then frowned. Of course, if I can guess your significance, so can unscrupulous agencies. Yeah, Harold felt a chill. What do they actually want, though? Zalara isn't just some fancy weapon. Morton pointed to an older image, a blueprint for a gene-editing device. I suspect they want her cells. If they replicate her physiology, they could militarize it. Self-healing biology, neural interfacing, and who knows what else. That's worth billions in both medical and warfare applications. Zalara's jaw clenched. I am not raw material for them to harvest. Just as Morton began to suggest a strategy, a loud bang echoed from the hallway. Harold tensed, while Zalara immediately stepped into a protective stance, eyes narrowing. A canister rolled beneath the lab door, spewing thick, acrid smoke. Get down, Harold shouted, flipping over a nearby table for cover. Dr. Morton scrambled to shut off the lab's main systems, but choking fumes filled the air faster than she could react. Zalara pivoted gracefully, her body glowing faintly with a golden sheen that seemed to repel the worst of the gas. Through the haze, armed figures in black tactical gear stormed in, brandishing advanced weapons that crackled with energy. Zalara darted forward in a lethal dance, disarming one attacker with a lightning-fast elbow strike. Another tried to aim a net-like device at her, only to have her shift aside, the net dissolving against the shimmering aura that surrounded her. Harold grabbed his datapad and go bag, lunging behind a structural column to keep out of the line of fire. Morton coughed and joined him, eyes streaming from the guard. Who are these people, she managed. Eclipse Corps, I'm guessing, Harold said grimly, feeling that same adrenaline-laced determination from before. He spotted a soldier creeping behind a Zalara, weapon raised. Acting on impulse, Harold hurled his multi-tool, striking the soldier's visor. The soldier stumbled, giving Zalara time to incapacitate him with a swift roundhouse kick. This is insane, Morton sputtered, holding her sleeve over her mouth. Suddenly, one last figure in tactical gear trained a sleek, cylindrical device on Harold. Before Zalara could intervene, the soldier pressed the trigger. A bolt of shimmering energy arced toward him, only to vanish against a shimmering field that Zalara manifested by thrusting out her hand. With a hiss, the cylindrical device malfunctioned. Zalara pinned the soldier to the wall with inhuman speed, her grip fierce. Who sent you? She demanded, a low growl underpinning her usual melodic voice. The man's eyes were panicked behind the visor. He gasped a single name. Eclipse Corps, Special Acquisitions. You'll be unstoppable if you remain free. No one can stop me from fulfilling my purpose, Zalara snarled, pressing him harder. Harold rose, heart pounding. Zalara, we need him conscious. We need intel. Reluctantly, she lessened the pressure, allowing him to speak. In shaky words, he confirmed that Dr. Rosalind Odell at Cyberhalonics had orchestrated a partnership with Eclipse Corps. The entire plan was to funnel Zalara's stasis pod to Harold, then monitor his reaction. The moment Zalara activated, they'd swoop in to capture both of them. Morton looked horrified, shock freezing her normally analytical mind. Rosalind Odell, I've heard that name. She's known in certain circles for advanced neural engineering. The soldier's eyes rolled back as Zalara's hold cut off his air supply again. They want her biology, he choked, and they want the key to your bond. He slumped unconscious. Zalara dropped him, stepping away in disgust. Morton wasted no time disabling the lab's cameras, ensuring no external feed would have captured the scuffle. Meanwhile, Harold scanned the soldiers' pockets, retrieving a nondescript ID card. They're not subtle anymore, he noted, scanning it with his datapad. We've got to get out of here before more come. Morton nodded, rummaging for an older key fob in a drawer. I have a heavy transport truck out back for field work. It's unregistered and rigged to carry heavy loads, including artifacts. We can use it to outrun any immediate pursuit. Zalara took a moment to steady her breathing, her glow subsiding. First, we must decide where we're going. Harold glanced at Morton, who was already inputting coordinates into her tablet. I've been mapping potential sites of major precursor activity for years, she said, her voice firm, despite the lingering smoke. One location stands out, the Obsidian Basin. Geological anomalies suggest a buried facility with energy readings off the charts. Zalara's eyes lit with recognition. I sense, yes, that might be the final resting place of the ancient technology meant to guide your people. It's also where I can tap into deeper archives. Harold exhaled. Then let's move. Eclipse Corps will be right on our heels. They loaded into Dr. Morton's transport truck under the cover of dusk. The battered vehicle roared to life, fueled by a custom hybrid engine Morton had personally modified for desert field expeditions. Zalara assumed a vantage point in the back seat, scanning the horizon with her advanced senses. Harold sat up front, guiding them with maps and the datapad. The drive spanned rugged terrain, winding across a desolate landscape of rocky outcrops and jagged ravines. As the moon rose, its pale glow revealed an empty expanse that seemed entirely devoid of human life. Morton mused that the region's geologic composition likely concealed advanced subsurface structures from standard surveys. Despite the adrenaline that had carried them this far, fatigue set in. Harold managed to doze fitfully between stretches of highway, lulled by the hum of the engine. Each time he opened his eyes, he half expected to see men in black vehicles closing in. But the desert night remained still, aside from occasional distant headlights that turned out to be lone travelers. By dawn's first light, they reached the perimeter of the Obsidian Basin, an otherworldly field of black volcanic glass that shimmered under the orange sky. Morton parked the truck behind a natural rock formation. This place defies normal geological explanations, she said, stepping out. Scientists claim it's just an ancient lava flow, but its symmetry and composition are suspiciously uniform. Zalara led the way deeper into the basin, her lithe silhouette casting elongated shadows over the obsidian shards. Harold and Morton followed carefully, mindful of the razor-sharp edges that jutted from the glassy terrain. Eventually, Zalara stopped, pressing a palm to a smooth patch of obsidian that reflected the sky overhead. There's an entrance here, she murmured. We must open it together. Our bond can interface with the structure's failsafes. Morton's scientific curiosity overcame her caution. She circled the area, scanning it with a portable device. Yes, there are magnetic fluctuations consistent with an underground facility. Harold, for his part, felt a strange pull in his chest, as if a gentle current of energy was nudging him to place his hand beside Zalara's. He did so, and the surface shuddered under his touch. A swirling seam appeared, forming a circular hatch that slid open with a sigh of cool air. Morton was so stunned she nearly dropped her scanner. Incredible! You two just opened a hidden structure with your combined biometrics. This is it. Proof that the precursor civilization buried advanced technology right beneath our feet. The hatch revealed a spiral staircase carved from the same obsidian, descending into a soft blue glow. Zalara went first, Harold second, Morton last, each step echoing in a space that felt far larger than should be possible. The walls hummed with a quiet resonance, as though awakened from a millennia-long sleep. When they reached the bottom, they stood in a cavernous chamber that defied normal geometry. The walls were lined with arcs of shimmering material that looked like liquid metal, yet remained firmly in shape. Above them, a swirling constellation was projected, or perhaps embedded in the black ceiling. Harold rubbed his eyes, unable to believe what he was seeing. It's bigger than it should be. This chamber alone is as big as a stadium, and we barely saw a surface footprint. Morton was already darting around with her instruments, babbling excitedly about dimensional folding and local gravity distortions. But Zalara seemed unfazed, like she belonged here. She guided Harold toward a raised platform in the center, where a curved console awaited. This is the archive, Zalara said, gently placing a hand on the console. It rippled like mercury, then solidified. It's a repository of all the knowledge the ancients left for your species. I was created to protect it and to help you harness it when you were ready. Harold studied the console as Zalara motioned for him to put his hand beside hers. The moment their skin made contact with the slick surface, arcs of light danced around them, as though bridging a neural link. He felt a gentle tug in the back of his mind, a swirl of impressions and alien symbols that gradually took coherent form. He caught fleeting glimpses of vast starfields, advanced cities, and beings that radiated intelligence. Then a heavy sense of sorrow or regret came over him, as though the civilization had chosen to depart too soon. Zalara's voice penetrated his thoughts, explaining that the ancients, sometimes called precursors, had reached a pinnacle of technological and biological unity, ultimately choosing to transcend physical limits. But before they did, Zalara added aloud, they placed sentinels like me on worlds they deemed full of potential, worlds that might one day stand on the brink of a new evolutionary horizon. They saw humanity as a species with a unique blend of adaptability and ambition, though also prone to conflict. Morton, observing from a short distance, was equally entranced by the swirling holographs that filled the air around the platform. They predicted our entire scientific evolution, or at least hoped we would reach the point to discover these archives. Harold took a shaky breath. Why me, though? Why was I singled out? Zalara looked at him with a blend of sympathy and warmth. Your genetic code was seeded with a specific signature. It allowed you, and only a rare few like you, to unlock my stasis. Over generations, that code was carried unknowingly in your lineage. Before Harold could respond, a deep rumble reverberated through the chamber. Warning glyphs appeared on the console, highlighting intrusion at the surface. An ominous red overlay indicated that multiple drilling devices had begun carving through the obsidian from above. Morton checked her scanner. They must have tracked us here, or at least surmised where you'd go. The energy signals from this structure are impossible to hide for long once active. Zalara's expression grew grim. We can't let Eclipse Core into this archive. They will pervert its contents for power. The data here is meant to elevate humanity, not enslave it. Harold turned to her, adrenaline surging. We either defend it or find a way to ensure they can't monopolize the knowledge. Morton joined them, sweat beading on her forehead. Is there a way to broadcast or replicate the archive so it can't be locked down by any single group? Zalara's golden eyes glowed with renewed determination. We can, but it requires a massive outpouring of energy and a deeper synergy between me and Harold. We would effectively open the floodgates, sending precursor knowledge to major networks worldwide. Morton's eyes sparkled with excitement. That could transform society overnight. Harold wiped his clammy palms on his jacket. Or cause utter chaos if humanity isn't ready. But better chaos than the tyranny of a single corporation. Let's do it. We'll trust that the world can handle the truth. Zalara nodded, though a worry flickered across her features. This won't be easy. You'll need to connect fully with me through the bond. It might change you, Harold Damon. He steadied himself. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. You've saved my life multiple times. Now let me share that responsibility. Suddenly, a new wave of tremors rocked the chamber, and the ceiling far overhead cracked as if from an enormous drill. Zalara looked to Morton. Get clear. Find a secondary exit on the eastern side. We'll handle this. As Morton sprinted for a corridor branching off from the main vault, Harold and Zalara remained by the console. A cluster of black-clad figures descended from a freshly bored hole in the ceiling, harnessed to ropes. In their midst stood Dr. Rosalind Odell herself, wearing a sharply tailored black jumpsuit. Her eyes swept the scene with a cold intensity. You've led me on quite a chase, Mr. Damon, Odell called out, her voice echoing through the massive chamber. But I have to congratulate you. You bonded with the Sentinel. Our predictions gave you less than a 30% chance of escaping even the first day of pursuit. Zalara tensed, golden aura flickering around her like a charged field. You used him, she accused, all for your corporate ambition. Odell shrugged, stepping off the rope as her entourage fanned out. I used him for humanity's benefit. Do you have any idea what we could accomplish by synthesizing your biology? Poverty, disease. We could end them, or we could engineer soldiers beyond your comprehension. We would be unstoppable. This is bigger than any single moral argument. You want unstoppable power, Harold spat. You're rationalizing your greed by dressing it up as progress. Ignoring him, Odell turned to her heavily armed subordinates, each carrying specialized containment rifles. Take the Sentinel intact. Harm Diamond only if necessary. We still need his genetics. They leveled their weapons, and Zalara sprang into action, moving faster than any human eye could follow. Golden energy erupted from her hands, short-circuiting one attacker's containment device. Harold, feeling the synergy with Zalara, realized he could tap into the same heightened senses. Rolling aside, he narrowly avoided a stun bolt and retaliated by yanking an attacker's harness, sending him sprawling. Despite their combined prowess, the sheer number of Eclipse Corps agents was overwhelming. Several advanced from multiple angles at once. Odell watched with an icy smirk, calculating the conflict's outcome with detachment. In the midst of the melee, Harold caught a glimpse of a soldier aiming a precursor-derived weapon directly at Zalara. Time seemed to slow as he made a fateful choice: to shield her. He lunged, arms extended, intercepting the blast. Pain tore through him like liquid fire, and he collapsed, the echo of Zalara screaming his name reverberating in his ears. Zalara's rage manifested in a cataclysmic burst of golden light. An expanding ring of energy knocked all the agents off their feet, shorted out the overhead lights, and caused Odell to duck behind a broken console for cover. The ground beneath them trembled, and arcs of luminous force crackled overhead. Harold's body felt shockingly cold where the weapon had struck. He gasped for breath, pulses of agony radiating with each shallow intake of air. Zalara was at his side in an instant, cradling his head in her lap, eyes shining with tears. "You can't leave me," she said, her voice breaking. "We are bonded. I can heal you, but it requires completing the merger of our energies. It will change us both irrevocably." Harold's vision blurred, but he managed a weak smile. "I trust you," he rasped. "Do it." Zalara pressed her forehead to his, golden tears falling onto his cheeks. Waves of energy pulsed from her core, intermingling with Harold's essence. For an instant, he was weightless, awareness floating beyond physical confines. He felt her memories, her fears, her ancient determination. A brilliant flash engulfed them both, forcing everyone else in the chamber to shield their eyes. Harold's consciousness expanded into a luminous domain where the precursor knowledge was no longer just theoretical. He understood, on a level beyond language, the intricacies of genetic manipulation, the architecture of advanced civilizations, and the reason for Zalara's creation: to usher humankind into a new epoch, forging a bridging step between mortal fragility and cosmic potential. The moment lingered, impossible to measure in ordinary time, until he felt the firm ground beneath him once more, his heart beating with renewed vitality. Slowly, Harold opened his eyes. The pain had vanished, replaced by a sense of empowered clarity. Zalara knelt over him, her aura still glowing, but now there was a subtle shift. Her skin seemed fractionally closer to human tone, while Harold's own arms bore a faint lilac undertone. Dr. Rosalind Odell stared in open-mouthed astonishment, her eyes darting between them. What did you do?" she whispered, fear creeping into her usually controlled demeanor. Harold rose to his feet, feeling more alive than ever. He glanced down at his hand. Tiny arcs of golden energy played around his fingertips. Zalara stepped beside him, eyes aflame with protective resolve. "We completed our bond," she said simply. "We are neither purely human nor purely Sentinel. We are something new." Odell's expression darkened. "You're throwing away the chance for humankind to harness your power in a controlled manner. You'd let it spread to the masses? Unregulated?" Harold met her gaze, feeling an unexpected calm. "We choose not to let Eclipse Corps turn this into a weapon. We're going to broadcast the precursor data across every open channel worldwide. All of humanity will have equal access." A flicker of raw panic crossed Odell's face, then she signaled to a handful of soldiers who were still conscious. "Destroy the console if you have to. They can't be allowed to complete the upload." Zalara and Harold pivoted in unison, raising their hands to generate a shimmering barrier. The soldiers' energy rounds dissipated harmlessly against it, sizzling in a spectacular light show. Striding toward the archive, they poured their combined will into the console. Holographic screens flared to life, each representing a different global network: scientific servers, public university databases, open-source research repositories. Streams of cryptic glyphs streamed out from the archive, fracturing into subpackets of data, each coded with advanced compression. The entire database of precursor knowledge, Ibeshimo, stasis designs, terraforming technologies, genetic breakthroughs, began uploading to tens of thousands of distribution points worldwide. Even Odell's finest infiltration experts couldn't halt the avalanche of information. Within moments, it was unstoppable. The once secret knowledge of a cosmic civilization was being shared with all of humankind, free to be studied, feared, or embraced. Zalara's aura flared brilliantly, the final surge of data leaving the console. A hush fell over the chamber, as though the entire structure exhaled. The swirling starfield overhead dimmed, signifying the archive's self-sealing protocol, some built-in failsafe to prevent any further exploitation. The few Eclipse Core operatives still standing stared in dismay at the overshadowed console. They turned to Odell, who was trembling with anger and a trace of awe. "You incompetent fools," she hissed at them. "They've blasted the data to the world. We've lost our chance for exclusive control." Harold and Zalara, standing side by side, exchanged a meaningful look. They both felt an unspoken understanding. The world was about to change in ways no one had fully prepared for, but it would be a collective journey rather than one dictated by clandestine powers. Dr. Helena Morton returned from the corridor, breathless but grinning. "You did it," she said, stepping around unconscious soldiers. "I've already confirmed that major scientific networks received the data. It's being disseminated in multiple languages, automatically translated by advanced algorithms embedded in the files. It's unstoppable now." Harold felt a wave of relief. "We need to get out of here before Eclipse Core regroups." Odell glared, but Harold could see she was calculating angles, perhaps searching for a last-second salvage. "This isn't over," she warned, her tone icy. "Even if you've forced the knowledge into the open, not everyone will interpret it benevolently. You've ushered in a new era of warfare, as much as an era of progress." Zalara responded with calm conviction. "We trust in humanity's ability to evolve. My presence was always meant to guide, not rule or oppress. By dividing the knowledge among all, we increase the likelihood of balanced growth." They spared no further words for Odell, turning to ascend the stairway. Morton, wide-eyed with a mixture of scientific awe and the reality of their precarious situation, followed close behind. As they neared the surface, the hidden entry hatch sealed automatically behind them. A pulsing hum signaled that the entire installation was locking itself down, likely according to ancient protocols triggered by the mass data release. Emerging into the daylight, they were momentarily blinded by the brilliant sun. Scanning the horizon, Harold's newly heightened perception detected additional Eclipse Core vehicles approaching. "We need to move now," he said quietly but urgently. Morton nodded. "I'll drive." They sprinted to the transport truck, dust billowing around them as they loaded up. With a rev of the engine, they tore away from the obsidian basin, leaving behind a battered but sealed precursor structure and an uncertain Dr. Odell, who was likely scrambling to salvage her own exit. For hours, they traveled in tense silence, navigating remote desert roads to avoid potential blockades. Once certain they were clear, Morton slowed the truck to a manageable speed, giving them a moment to catch their breaths. Zalara, seated next to Harold, rested her head against the seat. "How do you feel?" she asked, a gentle glow lingering in her eyes. He managed a small smile. "Surprisingly well. A bit different." Indeed, his senses seemed heightened, his body lighter, like he'd left behind some heavy burden. "I can sense you," he admitted softly, tapping his temple. She nodded. "The bond is permanent now. We share each other's emotional states to a degree. Our lifespans may have altered as well." Morton peered at them through the rear-view mirror, fascination evident in her gaze. "This is unprecedented. If I didn't see it myself, I wouldn't believe it. Has the entire world changed overnight?" Harold shrugged, gazing out at the desert. "Maybe not overnight, but we kick-started something huge. Scientists will confirm or refute aspects of the data. Societies will adopt or reject certain technologies. But at least it's out in the open." Zalara sighed, a whisper of contentment in her voice. This is how it was meant to be. One species moving into the next phase of its journey, guided by knowledge rather than manipulated by hidden elites. They drove on in pensive silence until the nearest highway led them back towards civilization. By the time they reached more populated regions, news outlets had begun circulating wild stories about a massive data dump revealing advanced alien knowledge. Governments scrambled to impose partial censorship, but the data spread too quickly, mirrored on thousands of servers, discussed on social media, dissected on scientific forums. 6 months later, the skyline of Celeron City glistened with new architecture that seemed plucked from science fiction. Transparent towers employed vertical farming with newly discovered nutrient solutions, while sleek commuter trains utilized near-frictionless tracks. The global release of precursor knowledge had seeded a technological revolution almost overnight, yet the full impact was only beginning to unfold. Harold stood on the expansive balcony of the newly established Synthesis Foundation, an organization formed to ensure ethical research and open collaboration on precursor data. The Foundation's campus spans several city blocks, housing scientists, ethicists, and educators from around the globe. He marveled at the changes, improvements in clean energy, breakthroughs in medical treatments, new protocols for dealing with potential misuses. It was far from utopian, with corporate entities and entire countries each vying for a piece of the knowledge's potential. But at least the playing field was more even than if Eclipse Corps had seized it all. A soft presence joined him at the railing. Zalara's silver hair was cut shorter now, framing her features in a distinctly human style. Her skin was still lilac, though the hue was subtler, blending more gracefully with the local populace. Yet her golden eyes remained as striking as ever. "Admiring what you helped create?" she asked, sliding an arm around his. Harold nodded. "Our handiwork, actually. It's kind of mind-blowing to think how much has shifted. We still have armed conflicts here and there, but many of the biggest geopolitical stress points are under new scrutiny, especially now that advanced biotech and sustainable energies are widely accessible." Zalara smiled softly. Humanity always had the capacity for innovation. They simply lacked a few critical pieces, and the impetus to share what they discovered. Just then, Dr. Helena Morton emerged onto the balcony, wearing a crisp white jacket embroidered with the Synthesis Foundation's emblem. "There you are. I was looking for you both," she said, holding a tablet loaded with fresh data. "Thanks to the open-sourced archive, we verified the existence of other Sentinel pods across the planet. Some are in remote jungles, others deep under the sea. We're not sure how many, or if they'll activate." Zalara's expression turned thoughtful. Each Sentinel likely has its own activation sequence keyed to different genetic lineages, waiting for the right moment. If humanity has truly entered its next stage, it's possible more will awaken. Morton swiped a holographic display. "We might have the chance to guide them, and hopefully steer them away from Eclipse Corps or other factions that might exploit them." Harold felt a pang at the mention of Eclipse Corps. After their humiliating defeat in the Obsidian Basin, the clandestine organization had fractured, but not entirely disappeared. Rumors abounded that Dr. Odell had gone underground, forging alliances with other unscrupulous entities. The conflict might resurface in new forms, especially as more advanced tech became available. Turning his gaze toward the shimmering skyline, Harold murmured, "Remember when you used to call me Master?" Zalara's eyes flickered with quiet amusement. "That was a built-in courtesy subroutine, keyed to the paternalistic notion that I belong to someone. Our bond has reshaped that dynamic." He chuckled. "Yeah, a bit different now. We're more like partners, or maybe the next iteration of what it means to be connected. And as strange as it sounds, I'm grateful. I used to think I wanted a simple, obedient assistant, but a life like that, it would have never pushed me to grow." Paragraph 16, approx 490 to 600 words. The three of them stood there, a silent bond of camaraderie and purpose linking them. In that moment, Harold reflected on the four strong points that had carried him through this life-altering journey, the same ones he'd realized back in that old motel room. Unity against the odds. He'd never been truly alone. From the moment Zalara appeared, they operated as a team. Even Dr. Morton joined their cause when it mattered most, proving that unity could overcome the most daunting threats. Knowledge is a collective force. By deciding to broadcast the precursor archives, they had chosen to trust humanity's better nature. This open accessibility was messy and unpredictable, but it was ultimately more freeing than letting a few power-hungry elites hoard everything. Adaptation and evolution. Zalara's literal design was to accelerate human growth, but humans had to choose whether to embrace or reject it. Harold realized that in many ways, he and Zalara were the living embodiment of that adaptation, forging a bond that merged worlds. Hope beyond the horizon. They had no illusions that the fight was over. Conflicts, conspiracies, and moral dilemmas would arise as Earth integrated the new technology. But they had set in motion a wave of progress that wouldn't be easily reversed, giving hope to billions. Morton cleared her throat gently, glancing at them. There's a press conference soon. The Foundation is unveiling a new approach to biotech licensing, offering it freely with strict ethical guidelines. Governments are scrambling to respond, but the momentum is on our side. Harold exchanged a look with Zalara. We'll never have a world completely free of strife, but at least we can shape the discussion. We can champion guidelines that prevent abuses. Zalara exhaled, the faint glow around her eyes intensifying for a moment. That is the essence of the Sentinel mission. Not to force a predetermined outcome, but to provide the impetus for a better path. They made their way back inside, greeted by hallways bustling with scientists, administrators, and visitors from across the globe. Data panels displayed real-time breakthroughs, new medical treatments, stabilized nuclear fusion, breakthroughs in quantum-level computing. Some had come directly from the precursor knowledge. Some were human innovations inspired by the new possibilities. As they approached the large auditorium where the press conference would be held, a hush fell among the staff who recognized Zalara's unique appearance. Some bowed respectfully. Others simply stared in wide-eyed fascination. Harold placed a hand on Zalara's shoulder. Ready? She nodded. Ready as I'll ever be. Morton pulled open a side door that led onto a stage. The assembled reporters and cameras buzzed with anticipation. Word of the Synthesis Foundation's success had spread, and now people wanted answers about what came next. Was there a limit to this transformative knowledge? Could humans truly handle it responsibly? Stepping onto the stage, Harold and Zalara stood at the podium while Morton took a seat behind them. The audience quieted, the camera lights almost blinding. Harold cleared his throat, tapping the microphone. He began speaking, his voice echoing through the large auditorium. 6 months ago, the world received a surge of data that challenged our understanding of science, culture, and existence. Our foundation was formed to ensure that knowledge remains free, ethical, and beneficial to everyone. We stand at the threshold of incredible possibilities and equally incredible responsibilities. Zalara spoke next, her melodic voice carrying a calm assurance. I am Zalara, created by an ancient civilization to guide you at this pivotal moment. I embrace this role, but I do not stand above you. I stand beside you as part of a future we will shape together. Yes, some will fear this power, and others will try to wield it for selfish gain. But Harold and I and all of us in this room are committed to ensuring it remains a beacon, not a weapon. Her words rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Reporters typed furiously. In that spotlight, Harold realized how far he'd traveled from the quiet engineer who just wanted a simple robotic assistant. He felt the bond with Zalara humming through every cell in his body. The press conference might last minutes, but the era they were ushering in would last generations, maybe millennia. As the first questions flew, it became clear the world was ravenous for insight, for hope, for direction. The Synthesis Foundation offered at least a spark of guidance amidst the upheaval of new technology. Beyond the glare of cameras, Harold sensed there would be more struggles ahead. Eclipse core remnants, political factions, and individuals who would stop at nothing to seize power. But at least now, humanity had an advantage it had never had before. Knowledge shared by design, and the living example of a human sentinel bond that proved cooperation could transcend fear. And so, with Zalara at his side, Harold Damon set forth on a path that could redefine what it meant to be human, forging a future shaped not just by advanced science, but by shared responsibility, empathy, and the unshakable belief that everyone deserved a shot at the wonders hidden in the cosmos. As the dust settles on the aftermath of Harold and Zalara's world-altering decision, new challenges begin to stir. Other dormant sentinels are rumored to be awakening across the globe, each with a unique genetic link that could spark profound transformations or create fresh power struggles. Meanwhile, the remnants of the old guard, including Eclipse Core, refuse to fade quietly into obscurity. They regroup and adapt, bent on exploiting any sentinel they can find, determined to reclaim the control that slipped through their fingers. In this new reality, Harold and Zalara stand at the forefront of a movement devoted to cooperation and open knowledge. They form alliances with pioneers determined to use precursor breakthroughs for the common good, hoping to guide the world toward peaceful coevolution. Yet the question remains, will humanity truly embrace this gift of cosmic advancement, or will greed tip the scales once more? Stay tuned to find out.